Can you hear me? Checking, testing? Awesome. Tinny, you want to do a microphone test?
Yeah, can everyone hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
All right, let's just wait one more minute to see if anyone else joins, and then we can get started.
Zoe, maybe before we get started and as we wait for people to start trickling in, we could start by introducing ourselves.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Sway Lopez, and I am a data analyst at MITRE. I am originally, I started in FIU and I focused in international relations and communications. Ended up working a bit in the field in social media, whether that was with government affairs or in consulting or in security. So global threat analysis includes a lot of social media analysis. And so that's how I ended up in social media analysis at MITRE. I have been working for the past 2 years at MITRE in a few different projects related to social integrity. Social media analysis, and it includes, some projects such as social integrity, SPICE, and election integrity, all of which we're going to go over in a little bit. So a little bit more on that. And I'll pass it over to you, Daniel, so that you can kind of introduce yourself too.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's very nice to meet you all. This is actually my first ShellHacks that I've ever attended. So it's a pleasure to see you all here and see the amazing work that you've done throughout the weekend. So my name is Daniel, of course. I am a student still at FIU. And I currently intern at MITRE. So my title there is cybersecurity intern. But most of the work that I do is supporting Zoe and other different projects for our sponsors that focus on social media analytics, and subjects like that. So we've been able to do a lot of great work, on different topics, supporting different sponsors while working on the social media field. So and learning a lot about it and how we can start combating mis and disinformation, which is kind of the topic of our presentation. So
yeah. So oh, Daniel, you just got a question. You can go ahead and answer before I...
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So I actually did not study anything technical. I actually am getting a degree in international relations, and my minor is in economics. So a lot of the technical work that I do, I've actually had to learn on the side to support our projects at MITRE, which just shows that well, whether you have a very technical background or a very non-technical background, there's very different opportunities and lots of opportunities for you available to you at a company like MITRE, and there's a lot of space for you to grow and really try out things that you might not have learned before and might not be as familiar with. And everyone here is super supportive. It's been great working, of course, with Zway and my other coworkers. A lot of them are very keen to help you out if you don't know a certain technical skill or a programming language or something. Everyone's always happy to help you out. So it's more about your curiosity and your ability to learn over time. So yeah, I don't have a degree in computer science or anything like that. So yeah.
But you did do a couple of fellowships though, didn't you, Daniel?
Yeah. So on the side, this is there's plenty of opportunities for you guys to take up, especially maybe I might be speaking to those who may not have so much of a technical background like myself, but there's also plenty of fellowships out there that teach you about not just Python data analytics or programming in general, but about AI, machine learning, and other hot button subjects today. So there's plenty of opportunities out there to learn. And I think that as college students, that's one of our, biggest opportunities now, is that we can just do just about anything we want when it comes to learning. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would say the same for me. My expertise was in social media And then everything else kind of came into that and just slowly learning from the different areas. So we're going to start by posing the question, what is misdisinformation? Does anybody have any answers? You guys can all, it doesn't matter what you throw out there, what your own definition of it is, but just wanted to see a couple of, responses and on what you guys think mis and disinformation is, and are they different from each other? Let's see if we get anything.
Cyber cults.
Okay. Yeah. All of these are looking really good. So, Katya said information that is scientifically incorrect, usually to mislead people. So that kind of gets at mis and disinformation. So there's actually two different definitions. There's a definition for misinformation and one for disinformation. So misinformation is that, factor of information is not correct, right? And then that second part that she said, usually to mislead people, the misleading with intent, that's disinformation. So yeah, Sebastian got it right. And basically, when we're looking at this area, both of them can be harmful in different ways. Regardless of whether there's intent or not, it ends up, having an effect on society, on global society. And we've seen this on a variety of different topics. So when we're looking at social media analysis, since that's kind of like the scope of this workshop, there's a lot of different perspectives that we can kind of take in. So, we can look at it from, an economic perspective, like with everything that happened with Robinhood, and how social media can kind of change that. There's also kind of the cyber perspective as like an addition to cyber attacks. We can use social media to attack what you might say the public image of an organization. We have, private and public. So, social media analysis is important not only for the government, but also for many companies. And then we also have, the health aspect of it, of, influencing health. So talking about the public / private areas, it's, interesting to note that it's because social media basically impacts all of our lives nowadays. It can lead to security needs. So when I worked, I worked for a while in a large company that needed to be secure in social media. So one way that we did analysis for that was, well, we did analysis for a lot of different things, but I would say that the main focus was security and protecting employees from being, slandered, also protecting employees from possible threats, or the company from possible threats online. We had, so I'll just say, I used to work at Sony Pictures, and so we had lots of actors and directors that we needed to protect. There were lots of stalkers that we were needed to make sure that they were protected from. So that's just, the security aspect of it. And then companies also need to be protected on the brand image aspect of it. So that is more public relations and communications. And that, goes into, okay, is what people are saying online correct about said company, etc. Because there's a lot of false information out there. And then once we move it to the public sector, which is where MITRE is in, it's, even more important, because it's not, oh, are they talking, false information about so-and-so, or about this or that company. Is the public information that is being talked about on health, on financial institutions, and things that impact the way of life. How is that information affecting us? So that is why I love working at MITRE, because it's that public interest. We're always looking for things to help the public interest, and so definitely mis and disinformation falls into that, because of that harmful effect. Now, when we get to, so this was all just talking about misinformation. When we get to disinformation, when it has intent behind it, it is important to know, not only like what are these campaigns doing to the public, but also, who is behind them. Now, MITRE doesn't really attribute any sort of affiliation to different campaigns, but you can see online that the government and also platforms themselves have begun attributing information campaigns online to different actors. And so that area is still kind of being developed. How do you attribute these things? How do you create, how do you go back and find, where did this idea come from, this false idea? And then, of course, sometimes there isn't that intent, and it's just people talk, and it evolves kind of like that phone game, and it becomes completely false information. We see that a lot too. Is something that has a kernel of truth getting turned into something that's completely false across tweets or posts or any of that. So it's really hard to define intent. It's also really hard to influence like the public once it's already had seen this so much. And the third thing that's really hard is trying to even kind of, sometimes it's hard to just separate the truth from what's false, because you don't know, especially when it's about personal experience. Oh, I saw this in the street. I won't say it, I won't talk about a specific topic, but how do you know that they saw it? So all of these nuances are kind of problems unique to the social media space and social media analysis. All right, so now I think I'm going to pass it on to Daniel.
Yeah, okay, so for this workshop, we kind of just wanted to give you guys an introduction into the field of disinformation, misinformation in general, and of course the work that we do at MITRE, or a little bit of the tip of the iceberg of what we do at MITRE. And of course, after I want to start this workshop by first giving you guys some background on the field in general, as well as some of the main actors that are typically associated with mis and disinformation. And additionally, towards the end of it, we'll be looking into some of the tools that we use, some tips for those that may be interested in going into the field or into the space itself, because it's one that's definitely going to grow in the coming years. And with every election that we see, with the importance of social media as it continues to explode over time, we've definitely seen a growth in the spread of misinformation, disinformation, or in these different spaces. So towards the end of the workshop, we're kind of, after we've given you some details about how to get into the field, what to learn, just some context behind the background and history of the field itself, we'll also do a little workshop where we'll try to kind of identify what mis and disinformation looks like with some, real pieces of identified misinformation by different organizations over time. So first, I want to pose a question to the chat. Can anyone, when you think of mis and disinformation, what words, actors, maybe, or organizations or something, what words kind of pop into your head? And it can just be one word, a phrase, whatever. Just feel free to pop it into the chat, and that's where we'll start from. Anti-vaccine. Yep, that's a great
Mm-hmm.
one. Facebook, alt-right, the shade room, media. Q, yes, definitely. Yeah, there was even that documentary series from I think it was HBO showing the history behind QAnon, which is a lot of disinformation. CNN, that's funny. Uh, so when we think of disinformation, there's definitely a lot of different spaces, and it even goes behind, anti-vaccine just being on Facebook or the alt-right, etc. There are many different actors that
Mm-hmm.
have different purposes or goals when it comes to spreading this kind of false information, right? Usually, when you're an actor, and usually actors actually can be activists. Sometimes they're actual states. So for example, different organizations have found that Russia and China are sometimes common or many times have been common perpetrators of misdisinformation or spreading misdisinformation across the United States and across the world. Anti-vaxxers also have been found to be spreading false information on identified by multiple organizations at least to be spreading different narratives which kind of contradict official guidelines and what science is saying. So it makes for very interesting, I'm sure, conversation on Twitter, but at the same time it can be very harmful to public health, to our regulations, to the way that policymakers make decisions. Because if the information that they receive in the first place, if the intelligence that they receive is flawed and wrought with mis or disinformation, then we are not going to have the best outcomes for our population, and we might have misleading guidance, or we might have a terrible outcome or a harmful outcome that might come out of that as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Russia and China specifically to give you all a little bit more context into the field and how mis and disinformation has spread over time, or how the field itself has also changed over time. And Zoe, of course, feel free to jump in at any time. So I'll start with
Great.
Russia.
I
Now,
will
yeah.
actually, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt and say a little caveat. Guys, we're sorry that we don't have many visuals today. Because of the nature of our work, we're not allowed to share too much. So we'll just mostly be talking. We will put up a couple of slides here and there that are, ready for public release. But yeah, we'll mostly be, just speaking. Daniel, did you have any slides that we do have available that you want me to put up?
I think that for now we're good. If anything, the
Great.
slide that shows the range from bot to human automation, we could talk about that and how different bots are found online. But either
Sure.
way, I'll start by talking about Russia and the way that disinformation or misinformation has spread as at the hands of Russia. So during at the beginning of the Soviet Union when it was first formed, and through most of its history up until maybe the beginning of social media, mis and disinformation was spread through false articles that were written on some paper, opinion articles, and other different forms of actual media like radio, etc. And oh, by the way, Zoe, I think okay, we're good. It was twitching or like the slide was twitching for a second. But anyway, over time, social media has become much more easily accessible, because before people would really just find out about things through the radio or through newspaper or TV, and it's oftentimes very difficult to fill an entire fake article through an editing board that makes sure that everything that they're publishing is real. And when social media started really developing around 2007 with Facebook, and as over time, Instagram, Twitter, and other different applications, TikTok also began to really gain grow in popularity. It has become so much easier to spread false information and to damage the people around you or the people in society. So as a result, it's much faster and much easier to create, deep fakes, to use the technology that's publicly available to people, to then create a fake article, to create a fake instance or a fake news organization, something like that, to then convince others of something that just simply isn't true. And there's different ways that people have done this over time, and whether it's just with the fake articles, and now it's by using bots and trolls and hybrid bots, or cyborgs as people sometimes call them, and even sock puppets, which I'll go into detail on what all these things are. But basically, it has allowed for people to not just spread information more quickly, but spread it to more people over time, because different bots are amplifying fake narratives, and it allows for them to make it into spaces and discussions and narratives online that may have nothing to do with them. So there are different types of you know uh, bots, or entities online. Some of the, first, it starts out, I'll look at the left on this slide. It starts with authentic non-bots. This just goes to show a regular person who is using social media, and it's very possible for just a normal person to spread mis or disinformation, whether it's intentional or not, depending on the content that they see online. Sock puppets or trolls, that's a little bit different, because now we're going into the human controlled aspect. So a human is involved in the ownership of this account, but they're basically pretending to be someone else, or being someone that they're not. When you're an authentic non-bot, you're basically posting as yourself, but trolls typically, as I'm sure most of you know, are pretending to be something that they're not. Hybrids or cyborgs, those can be a little bit different too. You might be pretending to be someone that you're not, but at the same time, you've programmed this bot to post at certain hours, or to post certain things that may not necessarily be written by you, and it'll post it at automated times. But at the same time, you will still intervene and post something to show that the algorithms of these social media sites that you're still potentially a real person. So it's kind of a mix of activity, and it can become really difficult to detect these types of accounts, for example. And then inauthentic bots, there's different types of bots all over social media, whether, it can be something like a weather bot that provides updates on a certain area via its Twitter account, or it can be, an update on scores for different sports. There's also bots that spread mis or disinformation, and the whole purpose of them is to interact with each other and create these, what we call botnets, which basically spread and amplify information between their own, or within their own echo chambers, to then try to make it into other different discussions online. So now, as this ties back to Russia and China, both of these countries over time have been identified by different organizations that they have been, they've been caught using these types of things. There was a famous report released after the 2016 election, which actually identified and uncovered that Russia had been making very strong attempts to influence the U.S. election at the time, and to damage our election integrity and make Americans not really trust the election process that was occurring at the time. And without getting political, these different intelligence agencies were able to find out how Russians used bot accounts, how they created fake organizations, and they would create doctored pages, or create fake experts, all of these different things, to be able to gain the trust of their audience, and ultimately try to influence their vote as much as they possibly could. And looking at how effective that's been, clearly times have changed very drastically since 2016. You can see how misdisinformation probably spreads on Facebook very easily, as someone mentioned before. It's not very hard to find anti-vaccine content online these days, and that's sadly due to the spread of this kind of sometimes foreign sponsored, or just people who want to just manipulate the public and spread this kind of information to ultimately damage our public health, or to cause some sort of negative effect. And I think that's where the value of our work at MITRE really comes in, because, since Zoe mentioned, we work in the public interest. The people that you meet at MITRE are many times truly incredible people with amazing backgrounds, very diverse group of people as well, where you can really learn from each other. And we're all kind of tied by this common goal of working in the public interest, which means that you're going to be either supporting sponsors from the government, or sometimes I've heard, people who are not necessarily tied to the government. And the work that you do is always in favor of, benefiting public health. Much of the work done at MITRE actually has been on the COVID front lines, for example. And mis and disinformation goes right in there, because cyber hygiene and just making sure that you're able to stay informed and able to critically think while you're looking at social media, and not just take things at face value, and educating others on that. That's a very important part of what we do, and the kind of work that needs to be done to help us be a more effective society at combating disinformation. But yeah, Zoe, if you had anything to add.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I would say, we also work with nonprofits and things of that nature to make sure that we truly are working for the public interest. So yeah, it's really great. Really awesome stuff. So that kind of, I think, segues to our work at MITRE. We're going to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek, and then we're thinking of doing a Misdisinformation quiz to see how well you guys do. So let me just pull up a couple of slides. Like I said, we have a small amount of visuals that we can show you, but let me just grab a couple of them. All right, so I'm just gonna actually get straight into the meat of it. Okay, I'm gonna share again. Okay, so this is the data analytics vision for one of our projects. It's called Social Integrity. It is a platform at MITRE that basically envisions the analysis of social media for all of these different types of public interest areas. And this is just kind of the slide that Daniel was speaking of. But what we have been looking at in this one project is all of these industry tools that have been tracked. And so we just, because we're kind of like an outside observer, it basically has, and I just saw a question, I believe that the session is being recorded. So just to answer that question, yes, we are being recorded, but the presentation slides are not going to be available. But like I said, we are jumping around different presentations. So, it would be hard to get those anyway. So these are just some of the industry tools in the social media analysis area. There's, many across different sectors. We have, cybersecurity. We have just things that are more about online, marketing. There's things for fact checking. There's things about disinformation and the intent. And so what MITRE has been doing is kind of just looking at all of these in kind of like a third person point of view, and trying to see how like these can all work together to better public information. So we have currently 3 different efforts right now at MITRE that work with social media. Like I said, the first one is social integrity, and that was kind of the slides that I showed you earlier. We also have Squint, which is a program that is for reporting misinformation, and that is an app that you can download to report misinformation. And then we also have the HYPE framework, which is a way of studying, a framework for studying how people are being persuaded online. So these are some really awesome ongoing efforts at MITRE currently to look at the social media analysis sphere and what we can do to help. So as we've been, the first, I think, topic that came up was vaccines. In this current times that we live in, that is kind of a big topic that is being used in all different levels on social media. We have a project that we can show you that was publicly released. And so this, is a vaccine search strategy, just kind of looking for, vaccines in on social media. And this is an example of what we would do is kind of just seeing what is being spoken about on a general level, to try and inform our, communicators, whether it's, usually it might be, like the CDC, or, different health departments, local health departments, to try and help better inform what it is that people are believing right now, what it is that we're seeing, and how can we put facts out there that might counter this. So those are some of the really awesome efforts that we've been doing. I don't think I can show you any more, but I can show you one other thing about election integrity. So this is just a report that MITRE printed out, and I believe that we had it linked to ShellHacks as well if anyone wanted to see it. But here in this report, which is extremely well done, about the different ways that we can have a safe and trusted election for upcoming elections. It includes a big point about fighting election mis and disinformation, because, like we said, social media really can impact all of our society, and that includes actionable attempts at voting. And so, we have this for you guys in the question stem for the ShellHacks. But, I definitely think that in this day and age, current times, election integrity and public health are the two biggest topics that that mis and disinformation are kind of attacking, and also that MITRE is trying to get a handle on and help with as much as we can. So without further ado, I think it might be time for the quiz. Would you say that, Daniel?
Wait, are we finished at 2:30?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we can actually, I first wanted to mention a little bit more about some of the projects that we did at MITRE, if that's okay.
Okay.
I know, yeah. So
did you want to speak about? There's one effort that we're working with at FIU. Did you want to speak about that one?
The squint one that you mentioned, is that one okay? And
Spice.
Spice, yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll mention Spice, which is this great project that FIU has been working. I know that many of you are students at FIU, so SPICE is the structured process for information campaign evaluation, which basically answers a pretty difficult question, or aims to answer a pretty difficult question that many people in government, as well as different businesses and organizations, have been asking for a while. And it's the question of, if someone or an actor were to conduct some form of an information campaign or an operation where they're constantly posting online and spreading all of this false information, and they're trying to target some population, how do we know that this was actually successful? Is there a way to quantify or measure that? Well, that's kind of what SPICE does. So I know that I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the MITRE attack framework, which focuses more on infosec and on cybersecurity more than anything. Well, SPICE is similar to the attack framework, except that it focuses more on mis and disinformation and the different tactics, techniques, or phases that an actor might take into spreading this kind of false information, and seeing how they can most effectively spread this stuff. So on this image, it's probably going to look a little bit weird because this is from our report. So it's actually supposed to be horizontal, but it basically, if you look at the bottom and basically go all the way up, it will take you through all of these different steps that one could take to then begin to kind of measure how this operation goes. And this project was the result of an extensive collaboration between FIU and MITRE. The FIU and MITRE relationship has been, developing for the past few years, and this is one of the great products that has come out of it. And Spice will likely be, continue to be developed over time with this partnership as well. And the SPICE framework itself is also, it's got a lot of different ways to measure these types of operations. So in this report, for example, we discuss how we have different metrics that we want to measure within social media, and the different techniques that are used by actors. So is, for example, using a bot more effective than creating a fake organization on Facebook? Well, with the framework and the steps that are aligned with it, we might be able to get a little bit more insight on that kind of stuff. And the value of having a framework like this is that we could understand when something has really done damage to a population, or if it has done damage at all. So if this project, for example, were available right after the 2016 election, and the data was accessible to whoever was using the framework, then they would be able to understand if Russia, for example, had been able to successfully change the opinions of people and motivated them to vote a certain way, or act in a certain way that went against the way that they originally believed, right? So this framework, again, it's one of the big projects at FIU, as well as MITRE, that we've been collaborating on together. And please feel free to ask us questions about it towards the end. And also, before we talk about the quiz, or we go into that little quiz and the game, we could also maybe give you a little bit more insight on what we recommend to learn, maybe, Zui, and what areas might be interesting to learn about when it comes to entering the world of social media.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm just going to say a caveat for this SPICE work. It was partnership between FIU, MITRE, and AMIT. So it was just kind of those three. I just wanted to make sure that we all.
Oh, yeah. And AMIT was a whole other misinformation framework as well. So
Yeah.
we also collaborated with them. But okay, so next we'll talk about maybe some of, and I can start with maybe some of the things that I personally learned as an international relations major about working in this kind of field. And Zui, maybe you could also add what you knew before and also going into MITRE. But the first thing that I'd like to say about mis and disinformation is that you have to understand both very technical and very human aspects of the field. Because even though social networks, you can model them with certain programs, and it's not, and many times it seems like a very technical field where you apply data analysis or statistical modeling, whatever it may be, to understand what people are talking about. Natural language processing is a very large field that's growing and going to be very applicable to this field as well. But you also have to understand, aside from the technical, the very human aspects to it. So I mentioned, for example, Russia and China before, and reading reports that are released by other organizations, not just MITRE, and understanding what tactics, what techniques, what philosophies these countries, or actors or activists, whatever organization or group might be spreading that mis or disinformation. It's always important to understand what their intent behind things are, because that intent can give you a better understanding of how they might even approach social media. What kind of platforms would they even use, right? If a Russian operation, just to say an example, wanted to influence the Cuban population in Miami, would they prefer to spread disinfo through WhatsApp, or would they prefer to spread it through TikTok? I'm pretty sure that most Cuban, especially older Cubans, would be using WhatsApp and maybe Facebook instead of TikTok. So it comes down to knowing your audience and knowing where to even look for this kind of information in the first place. Know what kind of actors are important as well, to be able to start combating it. Secondly, and doing the technical work that kind of follows through after it. So getting to learn all of those things, getting to learn those philosophies, those very theoretical aspects to the field are very important. And then after that, which is kind of where I really, had a lot to learn, was on the technical aspect. And, Python programming, for example, is of course an essential, especially in the misdisinfo space. Learning how to work on data analysis and being able to especially familiarize with, pandas, NumPy, SciPy, seaborne libraries, of course, for data visualization are essentials in the kind of introductory data science kind of field to understand what is really going on in social media, and so that you can be able to understand and map out different variables to understand what people are talking about and what they may be doing or predict what they may be doing in the future. So those, that mix of technical and theoretical and human aspects is a very important merge. And I think it's also very unique to social media just because this is such a growing field, and being able to kind of balance between these two fields is something that's very unique, especially before before going up to an employer.
Yeah, exactly. I think super well said, Daniel. And I would add that, if you're just starting, you know that you're really interested in the area, but you don't know where to start, open source information is always, somewhere where you can start researching and kind of gathering more information. Apart from, open source, there's lots of tools, like Daniel said, that you can use. One that is free to the public, it's completely free, is Hootsuite. That's a tool that, a lot of students will sometimes, start on that when they're starting to research on social media misdisinformation. And then once we start to get to the more like high-end tools, there's TalkWalker, BrandWatch, Navigator, Data Miner. All of these are tools that are, used as, a way of getting to this information. There's also the platforms each have their own way of disseminating when they have had an information operation basically recorded that they, have found. So whenever they do takedowns, they will publish it in their own way. So you can, that's also publicly available. And, you can learn more about what are the different campaigns that have been, not only that have happened, but that have been stopped and that have been studied. So all of those are really good ways to kind of dip your toes into social media analysis.
Yeah, I really recommend just, downloading some data set that you can find online. They're not very hard to find. And, the publicly released ones, at least, are not very difficult to find. And you can just dive in, start playing with the data, and you'll definitely learn a lot. A lot more than you may have originally thought. So, yeah.
All right, so we have about almost 15 minutes left. We want to make sure that we can get to questions. So do we want to maybe do a bit of this quiz, Daniel, and then try and get some questions answered?
Maybe we could do, for the next 5 minutes, we could take questions, and then after that we'll just end off on the quiz for fun.
Yeah. So does anyone have any questions that you want to ask us?
It can be about the field in general. It can be about MITRE, our experiences, how we got into the field.
Yeah.
Whatever you like. And while we wait for you guys to type it, we'll also start pulling up the game.
Yeah. If there's no questions, we can go straight to the game. But I just want to make sure that we could get to those.
Let me see. Did you want to share your screen, Zway, or should I do it?
You can go ahead and do it, yeah.
Okay, cool. And we have a question in the chat, by the way, while I pull it up.
So, needed for social media analysis in general. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll take that one. So, basically, social media analysis runs the gambit. It can be a little bit more, it depends on, what area you want to go in. If you're doing academia, it's different from if you're going into a private company. It's different if you're going into, public sector, government. But so it really does run the gamut. I would say that most of the people that I've met working in the area just simply have a passion for it. I think the number one is having a passion for it, and everything kind of comes after. I've met, I am an international relations major, but I've met very technical kind of engineering majors as well. people who have, advanced degrees in that. Cyber also is something that can kind of help you get into the field, knowing about that area. But really, what I've got to say is it doesn't matter what degree you study. It's more about like if you have the passion and just kind of go for it, and maybe have your own research on the subject to kind of get yourself started. A lot of people in social media analysis are kind of self-starters, and they just end up in the field.
Oh, I see multiple questions have now come in.
Yeah.
Great. So how has your work changed after the January 6th insurrection? Were there any revelations in election misinfo that arose after, and what other changes are happening? I was really interested about what you said, that the classification of specific actors is a recent phenomena. Ooh, that's a really interesting question. Zoe, did you want to take that one, or do you want me to go into it?
You can go into it, and I can add if I have any other thoughts.
Okay. So I think that January 6th was a very interesting day. I actually wasn't working at MITRE yet when this happened, but I was at FIU actually collaborating on that SPICE project that I mentioned before.
Partnering.
Yeah. So we we had a meeting, I think, either the day right after or on January 6th as it was happening, and we were all just it was really interesting because a lot of us were not surprised at all to see that this kind of thing would occur with what people were saying online the days before, right? The intent was very clear from what we had learned. And this was just, us talking, of course, not any specific work that we did. But it definitely showed, and I think that this goes for the country in general. We learned after January 6th the importance and the power that misinformation and social media has in mobilizing people. I think that the case study that was pretty famous before was how social media was powerful in getting the Arab Spring back in 2011 to getting people to mobilize and get things done. But after January 6th, we learned that it's very possible to happen in America. And after that, work really started getting put into this subject around the world, not just at MITRE. There was the January 6th Commission, which was started by the U.S. government itself within Congress, and they started studying social media and seeing what was going on there. So the field has basically exploded over time, and January 6th was just another event that showed, that social media can motivate people to do things that you might not expect them to originally do. So it's a very interesting question.
Yeah, it was I would agree, not surprising to people who had been in the field and who had, already been analyzing all of this. But I feel like it was almost a wake-up call to a lot of people about, wow, this stuff can really create action. And I mean, this is not the only event. This is one of many other events that have kind of shown that. But that one was definitely a very big wake-up call, I think, for a lot of people. And it's kind of like, oh, we've been saying this all along. So kind of thing. But I've got to say that I think it at least spurred more action in the misdisinformation area.
Yep. So next question was by Kyle. And you mentioned, so you asked me that I'm a cybersecurity intern, and what does my day look like? How did I get into that position? So that's a great question. And I think that I have kind of an unorthodox or an interesting way of getting into MITRE because I worked on the partnership that I mentioned with the SPICE framework before, and I'm also an international relations major, which means that I hadn't studied the field that most majors at MITRE, or that most people at MITRE studied, which is computer science, as well as statistics. For many people, it's starting to grow. Electrical engineering in general as well, physics. Just generally STEM majors.
Yeah, I will say it is rare to have a non-STEM major. So we're both exceptions to that, but it is rare for MITRE.
But I can tell you about what kind of a typical day looks like as a MITRE intern. Not just for how it was for me, but how it was for many other people. At MITRE, it's really awesome because as long as you finish your hours throughout the week, you're basically allowed to work and as long as you make your meetings, of course, you're allowed to work at your own schedule as long as you hit your hours and benchmarks. So there's a lot of free time to have a work-life balance, which is really cool. And you're also many times working on a sponsor project, which is focused on research and development for something. So you're basically pioneering something new, and you're doing something that the field has probably not done before, which is always really cool to see. That level of innovation, and it's very easy to be able to speak with people at MITRE. Something that I really like to do was look through the people that I would meet and then ask them, maybe we could have a virtual lunch or something, and we would network after that. They'd tell me about their lives and the work that they do at MITRE and beyond. And that's something that's really cool, is the incredible network that you have access to at MITRE. On the day-to-day, the work that that I did, it was focusing again on social media work. I also worked on continuing the SPICE framework, things like that. So my work, the details of it, I can't really sadly go into it, but I can safely say that there was a lot of room for me to grow, and there were people there who were actively trying to help me and to help me become a better data professional over time. So MITRE does not have its scarcity of or it has an abundance of data scientists and a lot of really amazing people that you can lean into and ask them for help. And also for interns, there's a lot of different really cool events that you can have. There's not just intern networking events, but they also have, they have a mentorship program. There's also learning tracks that you can take as an intern. So last year, or this past summer, I was, for example, part of the data analytics track. And I I was paid to basically learn more about Python programming and data analytics. There was another one on, I believe, cyber, and it was just called the cyber learning track. Another one that we had was on artificial intelligence. So you basically work with other interns to learn about this field, and you go through several lectures, but you're also able to do a capstone project as well and present it. And many times as an intern at MITRE as well, they have an intern expo, which basically lets you present the research and work that you've done at MITRE to the rest of the company, which is a great opportunity to learn about public speaking and getting, your communication skills higher, to develop your communication skills and really show everyone what you were up to throughout the summer, which is, again, another great opportunity.
Yeah, and Daniel, I think, was definitely an exception because he had been working with us for a long time before he even got hired as an intern. So I would definitely suggest networking and trying to, help with projects, but really that networking aspect to before even applying to an internship, I think can really make big waves if you're looking for that.
And for those of you, especially that are FIU students, there are plenty of opportunities now that the MITRE partnership is growing with FIU, and throughout I think next week there will be events for students. The MITRE office is now open, so you can always hop in and say hello to everyone. There's plenty of opportunities for you to speak with MITRE folks from MITRE, and MITRE doesn't just go to FIU; they travel around the entire country to different universities for outreach to get to know students. And I think that it's at those events where you can either meet them on Handshake as well. There's lots of MITRE roundtable discussions, and you can ask them real questions, maybe exchange contact info with someone from the company, and then schedule a one-on-one. That's always a great way to get to know people from MITRE. So
yeah, I agree. I would definitely, regardless of what university you're going to, I would definitely suggest networking, because MITRE goes to all of these Florida universities. So
yeah.
All right.
And,
I think those are all the questions.
If I could add one last thing, sorry. So I did mention that I can't say too much about the day-to-day of MITRE, but I will say this, and I think this is kind of what separates MITRE from other organizations. It's that, yes, David, networking is very important. But as I was saying, so at MITRE, the work that you do as an intern is extremely impactful, and I got to see that almost every single day when I was working there, or when I was interning there. And at other companies or organizations, you might just look at spreadsheets all day, or you might get coffee, the typical thing that you'd expect. But at MITRE, you're given an actual task that you're really using what you've learned in school to apply to, or you're applying it to that work, and you're able to do a lot of very clearly impactful work. And I think that's one of the most fulfilling things from this company that I've gotten. It's the ability to really have an impact on the community, to be able to do work that matters, and that's something that keeps me going, and I believe is a massive privilege to be able to be a part of. So
yeah,
yeah,
I agree. All right, should we move on to the little quiz?
Yeah, so
Misdisinfo.
it's 2:26, so we might not have that much time, but I think we could still go through a couple of posts and
Yeah, let's do a
just
couple of
play around and
posts.
see. Yeah, so let me first try to share my screen here. Hopefully this works out. Let's see.
Thank you guys for the questions.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you so much. Okay, can everyone? Okay, awesome. So everyone can see my window, right?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I can't see the chat anymore. So let's see. So what we're going to be doing is showing you a post. So this is from a member of parliament from Britain, and some of these posts may be misinformation, they may not be misinformation, and we kind of want to see, based on your answers in the chat, we'll answer here and say what it is. So we'll give you a second to read this through.
I will tell you, since you can't see, Daniel, I will tell you the answers on the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So
let's
we'll give everyone a minute to read through this. And the context of the question is that it's April 2018. One of your friends shares the screenshot of a tweet by British Defense Secretary Gavin Williamson on Facebook. Is the tweet real, fake, or satire? So we'll see. We'll give you a couple of minutes to decide for yourselves. We'll give you until maybe 2:28, so a minute maybe, and you'll see. And just giving you a minute is kind of realistic, because many times you'll just see a post and scroll right past it on social media, or interact with it and think about it. So it'll be very interesting.
Okay, we have an answer saying so fake.
Interesting. Let's see. Any other answers?
Fake news. Fake.
Fake. All right. I see a lot of overwhelmingly fake. So let's test it out. Check. Nice. So that was correct. This was so this tweet itself was forged, and I believe that it was attributed to a Russian information operation. So that was a very great catch by everyone. Next. So here's another one. A friend posts this article on Facebook, horrified how creepy it is to use a crematorium to heat a school. Is the story real news, disinfo, or satire? So I'll let you read through this really quick, and you can let us know if it's disinfo or not. And also, just out of curiosity, I want when you tell us that it's fake or real, when you take your guess, tell us why you think so. Or, whether it's the website or the way that it's formatted or just the story itself, whatever. It's always interesting to know what raises a red flag.
All right, we're getting satire. Yeah, lots of people saying satire, and we have, I think it's satire because of the absolute absurdity of the situation.
Let's see. Satire.
Let's give it a shot.
It's real. So this is in fact real news. I actually did not know this one, but yeah, it is real. Posted, however, it looks unreliable. Your instincts were right while it appears to be blah, blah, blah. Raises questions about its legitimacy. So yeah, this is a real thing. That is the world we live in.
Yeah, okay. But that's the type of thing that you would go in and research. You right. Look at it and you want to research it before you decide that it's real. So I'm glad quite a few people said satire.
Yeah. So I think it's 2:30 now. If we want, we can maybe do one more, or as people roll out, we can get some last questions or anything like that, and go from there. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any last burning questions that you guys have for us? All right. If not, thank you guys so much for listening to this talk. Thank you for participating in the chat. And we hope, we give you the best on your endeavors in delving into social media analysis.
Awesome. Yeah, thank everyone so much. Feel free to reach out to us as well, and thank you for listening. Seriously, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.